young. You know, we had an incredible student in 2 of our classes this year, Sarah Parisi. Is the mom here? No, mom's not here. I'm going to talk about it. Well, Sarah it was blossomed in our foundation class that Reverend Reader and I spoke of, taught, and a spiritual practices class. Well, she manifested everything, so she's gone. She's in California, in the school she wants to be in, and she joined Agape. Of course, Joyful Gathering Agape, makes sense. Who was singing there last week as a guest was Stevie Wonder. So, there you have, well, he's a member. So is Oprah. But here, we're all members, right? We're all members. So I'm finishing right now a final look at the 12 conditions of a miracle. We've been speaking about this for the whole entire month. Everything's on YouTube. 13 years of talks are on YouTube. So it's all up there if you want to look back at the others, because we're on the last 2 miracles that we're going to talk about. So remember that these 12 conditions, this is based on a book, I'll talk about that later, are states of consciousness. 12 states of consciousness. And they were taught to us by a master teacher, Jesus, in his classroom in the desert. And this whole book that Dr. Todd Michael wrote, 12 Conditions of a Miracle, are based on this story of the miracle of Jesus with the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish. And there's so much in that. I cannot wait for our metaphysical Bible workshop and class. I'm really excited about that, because there's so much that we miss when we are brought up to look at the Bible a certain way, and then when we get metaphysically involved in it and can use, to me, if you can't use something practically, it's of no use. So spirituality, though, this spirituality is so practical. You use it every day, and these 12 conditions of a miracle, if you want to up it a little, are ways of using it every day. So thus far, we have looked at 10 of the conditions, the state or states of consciousness. And what was Jesus's overriding state of consciousness during the whole entire thing? It was the consciousness of oneness, a consciousness of unity. New Thought teaching / religious science teaches not duality, but oneness, unity. Jesus taught, when you look at his words, unity. The Father and I are one. I mean, there's so much in his teachings. Anyway, I'll go back to this. I love these words from Ernest Holmes in his Science of Mind book. Jesus was unable to find a place where his being began and the being of God left off, or where the being of God began and his ceased to be. It one and the same. He knew this, and that is so powerfully behind this one teaching of these 12 miracles, 12 conditions of a miracle. So I believe that while consciously setting up these conditions, that we're going to talk about them in depth today, can be mechanical, so is our spiritual mind treatment. And if you don't know what that is, it's affirmative prayer, but it's not just, first of all, it's not rote, okay? And second of all, there is a technique to it. There are 5 steps, I say 6. There are 6 steps, in my mind, to spiritual mind treatment. And people study in the classes to learn them. And then, once they have them in their minds, they fill in the blanks. Their own interpretation is spirit moving through them is what gives out the message in the affirmative prayer. It's the same thing in these 12 conditions. We have 12 conditions. So how we use them is up to us, but to learn them, it serves us. Everything should serve us so that we can live our lives as happily, as powerfully as possible. So, each of the 10 states of consciousness that we have already explored thus far are contained in the passage from Matthew 14, which goes like this. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by boat, alone in the desert place. That was condition number 1, emptiness. That's where he meditated. And when the people heard of it, they followed him by land from other cities. And Jesus went out and he saw this large crowd, and he had pity for them, and he healed them. That was condition number 2, alignment. Alignment with God/love, because that love is another word, capital L, for God, /love, and had compassion. And it was evening. The disciples came to him and said, "This is a lonely place, and it's getting late. Dismiss the people so that the men," because only the men can do this, well, anyway, that's my opinion. The men could go and buy food, right? Go to the villages, buy food, because there's 5,000 people there. But he said to them, it's not necessary for them to go. Give them something to eat. This is condition number 3, asking and getting clear about the need. They said to him, but we have nothing but 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Jesus said to them, bring them here to me. Condition number 4, maximizing. And condition number 5, giving. Both of those together. Maximizing, as it says, we make more of what we have. And he ordered the people to sit down on the ground, which was condition number 6, grounding in the presence of, in the power of the present moment. And we went into great depth on all of these. And he took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, and he looked up to heaven, which was condition number 7, seeing. Seeing, turning away from condition and seeing the truth of our being. There's one source. And then he blessed the food, which is condition number 8, gratitude. Then he broke the food in pieces, gave them to the disciples. Condition number 9, act as if. And the disciples placed them before the people, which is condition number 10, engaging the cycle. Okay? And that was a powerful roadmap. That took us a month to go through. So I'm saying it very quickly here this morning. That took us a month. So jumping in right now to condition number 11, receiving. It says the formula for miracles in Matthew 13 to 20, and the disciples placed them, that's the food broken in pieces, before the people, and they all ate and were satisfied. What a simple sentence that is. So they all ate and they were satisfied. Being a joyous, gracious, grateful receiver is an important part of this formula. We have to be able to receive. Law of circulation cannot be complete unless we give and we receive. Must be both. Must be both. So the people ate and they were satisfied. In her book, Lessons on Truth, New Thought pioneer Emily Cady wrote, we all have direct access through the Father to the, they got Father, I can't remember. I call God it, but anyway. To the Father, to the great whole of life, to love, to wisdom, to power. What we now want to know is how to receive more from the fountainhead and to make more and more of God manifest in our daily lives. The great need is to be a good receiver. I know a lot of people, they have trouble receiving. No, that's fine. You know, I don't have that issue. But a lot of, I love to receive. I love gifts. So, the point being that many people, they don't like to receive. And if I give you a gift and you don't receive it, then it's not complete. And it was the same with Jesus. It was the same thing. If the people had refused to receive, the miracle would not have been complete. If they had not eaten, the miracle would not have been complete. If they had growled and complained about getting only bread and fish, it would have seemed hollow. Or what if they refused to receive because Jesus had worked so hard and sacrificed so much to do the miracle, they couldn't possibly take it. It would be too much of an imposition. I hear people saying that stuff all the time. But it can't be complete. This is a cyclical world we live in. Everything moves in circles and spirals. That's scientific, because this is a science. None of this whole parable would have happened. The people received the food, they ate it, and they were satisfied. That's condition number 11. How much good/God can we experience? As much as we can embody. There is so much good, spiritual good, within us and everywhere. It's omnipresent. That all good is ours, but we have to be open and receptive to it. We can't, Rita would not have gotten those on the cameras. Rita got a recliner love seat. She manifested it in 1 minute. Because she listened. She listened to the voice that was telling her, oh, stop here at this store. Pull over. When she was on her way to a meeting at my house. Why she was late. But she manifested the exact thing that she wanted in her mind and could not have planned it. How many times do we shut that down? We shut it down, we don't listen, and the good just passes us by. And we wonder why we can't manifest. Well, I can never manifest. It never happens to me. Well, maybe it's been happening, but we haven't been paying attention. Doubt and fear often keep us from receiving and gracefully accepting the gifts of the universe. Not feeling worthy, that's a big one, of receiving is a huge detriment. And it's a huge deterrent. And sometimes our darn egos get in the way. Dr. Todd Michael, who wrote the book, 12 Conditions of a Miracle, talks about himself. And he writes the story in his book. He declined to work at a certain ER because the recruiter was too pushy and seemed controlling. He chose another one, another ER to work at, which turned out to be a disaster. The hours were long, the working conditions were miserable, co-workers, they were abrasive and difficult. After working there for over a year, he had an opportunity to take a single shift at the other ER. The regular doctor was ill, and the promise of double wage for going in, that lured him to accept it. Just this once, he said. Within an hour of arriving, he realized that this by far was the best ER he ever worked in. Working conditions were superior, doctors and nurses were friendly, equipment and backup was superb, even the pay was better. Within a week, he signed a contract and worked there happily for 6 years. He wasn't able to receive before. He wasn't even able to receive, even though his good was pressing upon him. The recruiter, perceived as being very pushy, was actually the universe trying to make itself known. And his irritation with her was ego-based. Did that ever happen to us in life? With things like, oh, I really don't want to do that, and this whole person, because, we make up stories about every single situation that's in our life. None of it's usually true. But we make up these big, long stories, and we don't go where we are really feeling guided because the ego is pushing back with all of these stories of how it's not going to be good. And so our good just passes us by. Ernest Holmes tells us, again in the Science of Mind book, God cannot give anything unless we are in the mental condition to receive the gift. We have to be ready, willing, and open to receive the gift. Edwin Gaines, the queen of prosperity, if you've ever met her, she's fabulous, drives a pink Cadillac. She became a Mary Kay, the high seller. They give them a pink Cadillac. She pulled up to the convention a couple of years ago in her pink Cadillac. But Edwin Gaines' affirmation is, I now allow myself to receive all that I have withheld from myself in the past. And I want you to repeat that after me. I'll break it down. I now allow myself to receive.
I now allow myself to receive
all that I have withheld from myself in the past.
all that I have withheld from myself in the past.
Just be open. Don't go here. Go to where the real intelligence lies, in your gut, in your heart. Listen to that. That's not going to lie, because that doesn't have opinions. This is full of opinions, full of them. So now we move on to number 12, recycling. Who plays or has ever played golf or tennis or baseball, racquetball, handball, any of those?
Yeah.
Quite a few people I know. Okay, so there is, all of those activities involve a swing. There is one component of that swing that we often forget. So we are so fixed on preparing for the swing with the right stance, the right wrist, the correct bend of the elbow, etc., that once we make contact with the ball, we think the job is done. Not so. Not so. There is one final component that is just as important. And so what is it?
Follow through.
The follow through. This is a brilliant group of people here. I knew it. The follow through, right? The same principle applies to the conditions that bring about miracles. What happens after the manifestation? Okay, we manifest something, but what happens afterwards is just as important as before the manifestation. And Dr. Michaels writes, the flow of energy must never be abandoned once the dream becomes a reality. When the desired results manifest, a certain follow-through must take place. Like a good golf swing, this follow-through will add considerable power to your actions and greatly increase the accuracy of your intent. The follow-through, after you've manifested something. Say, like I manifested a place to live, a house. So I manifested it. But the follow-through is what brought about the qualities I wanted to feel in it. I had to decorate it, because that's beauty to me, and that was one of my qualities I wanted in a house. Beauty, security, all of that. The follow-through afterward is just as important. So Matthew tells us in 13:20, so they all ate and were satisfied, and they took the excess of the fragments, 12 baskets full. There was leftovers. Of course, when Jesus does miracles, there's leftovers. So there were leftovers from 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And looking at the original Greek word, they don't talk about Aramaic, but Greek word, which was translated into excess, can mean excess. It can also refer to a state of superabundance. That's a fantastic word. Superabundance. And it's a word that Matthew used. When the conditions of a miracle are set into motion, the supply that manifests is so bountiful that it surpasses simple abundance and reaches the state of superabundance. How cool is that? I believe that. When this happens, there is more than enough for everyone. With the overage being handled carefully, the formula for the miracle conditions tell us that any supply that is unused was gathered and not wasted. And then we think about nature. Think about nature, because it's the greatest indication of the higher power that could possibly be, and how she recycles energy. Well, I refer to Mother Nature as she. She is always recycling the resources with precision of care. Think about the animals that use the oxygen and produce carbon dioxide. As a byproduct, plants use carbon dioxide as fuel and produce oxygen as a byproduct. Plants use decayed material in the soil and water as food. Animals eat those plants. They grow larger and eventually die. Their bodies are recycled through the process of decomposition, and once again, food for the plants. Always cyclical, always in cycles. Mother Nature wastes nothing, and Mother Nature is filled with lavish abundance. Lavish abundance. I know a tree doesn't cry when all of its apples, say an apple tree, fall off of it saying, oh, what am I going to do next year? I have no apples, they all fell on the ground. Well, Mother Nature, it knows. These trees know. They know in their consciousness, because they are not like humans that have to overanalyze every single thing, and they don't come from lack and limitation. And so next year the buds open up on the tree again, the apples grow, because Mother Nature is lavish, but everything is cyclical, everything. Anyone seeking to work miracles must honor this universal pattern. This accomplishment by carefully recycling energy and resources that pass through your life. We're all energy beings. God is energy to me. That's what God is. God is pure energy. We're made out of God. We're pure energy. We recycle. We recycle anything that feels like it's left over. We give more of it. If we're in joy, just by being in joy, we are spreading that joy. Nothing is wasted. So all of that energy is used for creating these miracles. And we're calling them miracles. We're calling them miracles because for us they feel like, wow, stopped at the straw, and miraculously there was exactly what I was looking for. To God, there are no miracles. There are no miracles in God. God creates it as so, period. But for us, we need a little bit more. So we're establishing the 12 conditions of a miracle, and we're going to compare it to, like, you ever see those people that spin a plate, and then they get another one and they spin the plates? You have to get the conditions all going at the same time in order to open the door for the miraculous. At first, it may seem impossible. It is far from easy to get all 12 things going at the same time. The task may seem out of reach. In fact, establishing and maintaining all 12 conditions simultaneously would be impossible if it were not for the good news. you have the ability, in case you didn't know, to form habits. Very important. Those habits are very important. With positive habits, you can get some of those 12 plates to spin automatically. With practice, this will leave you free to pay attention to the 3 or 4 conditions you might not be using at the moment. The number of the 12 are probably already, a number of these 12 conditions may already be habits, and in fact I know they are to many of us. We look at the insert, look at the insert in your bulletin. I have one here. We all have an insert in our bulletin. I wrote down the 12 conditions of a miracle for us to keep, and to, if we choose, and to check off. So, let's take a nice deep breath. And if you have a pen, that's great. You can check these up, or you can do it with your mind, or you can do it later. Perhaps you already have, like condition number 1, meditation. A rich and robust meditation practice. That's 1, emptiness. Jesus went into the desert to meditate, to empty himself of all thoughts and conditions, and allow the divine to move through him. Meditation. And perhaps you have a well-articulated vision for your life, and that's fantastic. That would be number 3, asking. And let me give you a moment or two right now to reflect on each one of these. And ask yourself, which of these am I doing right now? Which of these will probably already have the habit of giving gratitude? Acting as if. That's a big one we teach. Receiving. Recycling. Any of these we probably already are doing. Now for the ones you don't have checked, touch into which one could you begin today, and what is one way that you could begin it. All of these are very uplifting, high